So it's Mother's Day weekend. I hope you remembered your mother or your wife if your kids are small. We'll talk about Star Trek after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today there's really no news about Star Trek itself, but we still need something to watch in the time between now and in August when Lower Decks comes back on the air. Right now there are at least 3 shows in production. We know that Prodigy is being worked on. We know that Picard has started shooting. We know that Discovery has been into shooting and is now in post-production. We think that these shows are going to all line up once everything is said and done, but we still have some time to wait. And it's not like we don't have anything to watch. There have been several series. There, of course, is the original series. There's The Next Generation. There's Deep Space Nine. There's Voyager. There's Enterprise. There's Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks. And if that's not enough to look for a decent rerun, I don't know what is. But what I want to know is what your favorite episode is of all the series, and that's a hard one to nail down. There are a number of good ones, like The Best of Both Worlds, for instance, which is kind of the pivotal show in The Next Generation. There is the beginning of Deep Space Nine, a very powerful episode as we get to meet Commander Sisko. There's, of course, the time that Worf joins Deep Space Nine, or when Jadzia Dax dies. Then there is Voyager, and some very good episodes there. The time when they actually break the warp barrier and go past Warp 10. A most bizarre episode, but a memorable one. And then there's Enterprise, where they go back in time with the captain and T'Pol go back to Earth. And somehow it doesn't seem unusual for them to be there. These things are all good episodes, but the one that really sticks out in my mind is probably one of the first ones that I saw in the original series. I did not see the original series from day one. I was a fan of Lost in Space. You may forgive me for that because I was only like 11 years old. But when a friend of mine introduced me to Star Trek, the promos on NBC were so bad that it didn't sound like a very interesting show. It sounded like some kind of, well, I mean, if you've ever seen any of NBC's science fiction shows during the day, most of those were not very good. Star Trek was kind of the exception to that. And in this case, one of the first ones that I saw was the Doomsday Machine. Now, we know from our research that the Doomsday Machine was one of the few episodes in the series that got its own music, that actually gave you an in-depth look at one of the other starship captains. There's only like 3 shows where they showed other starships, and in this case, they showed the Constellation in quite a bit of detail. Despite the fact that all they did was just, wreck up some of the regular sets, they made it look different. They made it seem like a different ship. And they showed that Kirk was not your normal type of captain, and that someone like Commodore Decker, who had all of the right things in order to be a good captain, also just made some wrong decisions based on perhaps bad information, and in the end did something very noble. And while the special effects on it weren't the greatest, the reimagining of the special effects done in some of the new videos that have come out on the original series actually do more justice to the Planet Killer and give you more of an idea where the ships were and things like this. But the tension between Spock and the Commodore, McCoy voicing what we are at home, why don't you just, take the ship away from him and tell him to go, get his head examined, and the ultimate end of Decker and the bravery of Kirk, who knows that the transporter is just barely working, but decides for the good of everybody that he would be willing to sacrifice his life just in case it doesn't work, although he's very happy to have been brought back on the ship. It is a tense episode through much of it, but an exciting one. And they didn't have to do it with any monsters. They didn't have to do it with any planets. All they had was essentially a bottle show with a matte shot of a concrete ice cream cone. Actually, the original Planet Killer was made out of paper mache and based on a windsock. The original idea for it just was too complicated for them to film. But it made a good episode, and that's my favorite. So what I'd like to know is if you've watched any of the old Treks lately or plan to, which one would you watch? Which one would you rewatch, and why? Let me know in the comments, and we will think of something else to talk about next week. Happy Mother's Day once again to all of you who have mothers or who have children. Thank you for watching. Don't go far.